So I have yet to give you guys anything that has to do with the upper body. So you get the warm up, and now you're getting a little bit of a bench press tutorial where I'm showing you more so a setup. There's nothing going to be anything advanced like leg drive, rib position, elbow flaring, or anything like that. We're focusing solely on getting a decent setup, and then as time goes on, you end up compounding on all of those skill sets and or your setup, and then build onto that and to create ultimately your own specific technique for bench press. One of the biggest considerations you have to have when it comes to bench press is going to be hand placement. So just because max grip, for example, being that powerlifting is a sport of moving the most weight as possible, just because max grip is something that you can do doesn't mean you should do it, because ultimately based on how you're built, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a conducive way to do it, because some people will put middle finger on the ring finger on the ring, pinky finger on the ring. Whatever you can do consistently to make you the best bench presser, you do that. So first and foremost, I like to take the approach of, depending on the person, if it's a female, I tend to go pinky on the ring. If it's a male, I tend to say anywhere between the middle finger and the ring finger should be just fine for you to be able to go ahead and set up your bench press. So, rough example, I usually set up middle finger on the ring, get my hand set up, and then from here, I can go ahead and unrack. So the next thing that we're going to be approaching now is, instead of working from the hand and working down to the leg, I want to start with the elbow and then the scapula. So what we want to consider now is, once that hand is in position, we want to focus, just like I mentioned when it came to the warm-up, we want retraction. We want enough retraction for you to be able to create a stable base to press from. That's all you want to think about. So once you're here, you got that down, think about getting those scapula together. And then from here, you'd be able to unrack and start your bench press. Notice how, once that's into position, we're gonna go right back to the elbow. My elbow is going to be completely and underneath that wrist. Just like I mentioned in the elbow and wrist position video, too much external rotation, or basically taking that arm and kind of opening it up like this, is going to cause an inefficiency in your ability to press. Because no one bench presses like this and goes up unless you have a shirt or something like that. Totally beyond the point. You don't have to worry about that if you're not equipped. But what you want to think about is keeping that wrist over that elbow and then bringing the scapula down and back. So everything else is in check. The hand, the elbow, the scapula. Now we want to look at the head. So depending on the individual, how long their arms are, the way they're generally built, you can either be eye level with the bar or a little bit above it. So if I were to show you, here would be roughly eye level, my eyes completely lined up to the bar, or I can go slightly above that. You also have to consider the rack that you're using. If you notice, my head is sitting off the bench if I'm a little bit higher. So obviously, I'm gonna have to be eye level considering that. Another thing, a lot of people will start arguing and start applying their own rules to bench press when it comes to head up, feet on the floor, feet up, things like that. So what I want you to consider is, if you're competing at all, and if you're not, it doesn't fucking matter. Lift what you feel like you can lift, how you want to lift it. But obviously, if you want to do some semblance of powerlifting, you are going to have to pause. So consider that. If you are competing in USAPL, head has to be down, feet has to be down. If you're competing in USPA, you can have your head up, and you can also have, if I'm not mistaken, you can also have your heel off the ground. So totally depends on what you want to do. Don't listen to what anybody says if they're trying to abide by some elitist thing and like kind of put you into that box. Just do your thing, first and foremost. So consider that moving forward, and then you can decide whether or not you like to have your head up or head on the bench. So feet is going to be next. Feet position is totally relative to the individual, so you're gonna have to pay a lot of attention to what feels comfortable for you and what you can drive the legs with to be able to help you out with your bench press. So considering that, I'm fairly narrow. I generally end up pushing out in front of me. Some people like to be a little bit more outward. Some people like to have it coiled underneath them. Just like I said, totally relative to whether or not you're going to be competing in powerlifting and what federation you're going to be in. If you're in USAPL, feet down. If you're in USPA, correct me if I'm wrong, you have the ability to have that heel up. Totally up to you. So, take you guys through the whole thing. Sitting back into the bench, grabbing the bar, lining it up to where I feel would work best for me. Once I get that down, I start wedging the hand. My feet are down on the ground. I usually tend to pick my hips up at this point, and I end up pushing the ground away from me. My scapula is retracted. Unrack the bar from the bench. Hips are down now, and then from here, bring that bar down right to below the nipple line and or the bottom of the sternum, and press. Making sure my elbow is going to be stacked underneath that wrist. Remember, no excessive external rotation where we're chicken winging, and then you can just keep pressing. That's it, y'all. Gotcha. That was good.